Billionaire's son insults black maid for touching his $21 million Bugatti. Seconds later, she fixes it. What if everything you thought you knew about someone was a lie? Monica stood quietly, wiping the gleaming surface of the $21 million Bugatti in the Wallace family's pristine garage. Her hands, worn from years of cleaning, moved over the car with care. She'd been doing this job for years, maintaining the household's luxury cars, but today felt different. James, the entitled son of the billionaire family, stomped into the garage, eyes narrowed as he saw Monica near his prized vehicle. "What are you doing?" he snapped. "You have no right to even touch something like this." His voice dripped with condescension. Monica didn't respond. She continued her work, remaining calm and composed. She'd heard these words too many times before. James stormed off, muttering insults under his breath. But Monica knew something he didn't. She wasn't just a maid. "Where are you watching from?" Stay tuned to see how this story unfolds. Monica had worked for the Wallace family for nearly a decade, maintaining their lavish estate and taking care of their precious possessions. Most of her days were spent in the background, unseen and unappreciated, just another part of the household machinery. But in her younger years, things had been different. Monica wasn't always just a maid. She had been a talented mechanic, a rising star in the luxury car world. Before she was pushed out of the industry, Monica had designed and built some of the most exquisite cars, using her skill to create machines that many wealthy clients could only dream of owning. But racism and prejudice had forced her out of that world. It wasn't enough to be talented, she had to be someone that others could relate to, and Monica didn't fit that mold. Now, she found herself cleaning up after people who never knew or cared about the potential she had. Yet, when she worked on the cars, that old spark would still flicker. The cars were more than just machines to her. They were her art. Later that afternoon, Monica heard James shouting from the garage again. She knew what had happened before he even spoke. The Bugatti, with all its wealth and status, had broken down. Monica could hear the frustration in his voice as he tried and failed to get it started. "Why won't this thing work?" James yelled from the driveway, the engine sputtering in protest. "Ugh, I don't get it." Monica stepped outside, her heart calm. She had seen this 1,000 times. James, the young man who lived in a world of privilege, who thought his money could fix anything. He had no idea what he was doing when it came to cars. Without saying a word, she walked toward the car. James glared at her, but something in her eyes made him pause. He knew he wasn't going to fix it. He watched as Monica opened the hood, and within minutes, the Bugatti was purring like new. "Done," Monica said quietly, closing the hood with a soft click. James stood there, speechless. He hadn't expected this. His pride flared, but something inside him shifted. James stared at the now revving Bugatti, his mind racing. He had just witnessed Monica, the woman he had always seen as nothing more than the help, fix something he couldn't even begin to understand. A mix of confusion, anger, and disbelief swirled inside him. He had always believed that people like Monica were just here to serve him, to take care of the things that didn't matter to him. But this was different. This was real. He looked at her, still standing there, wiping her hands on a rag. She had done it so effortlessly, as if she were born for this. His pride pricked at him. "How? How did you do that?" His voice cracked, unsure of what he was asking. He wasn't just asking about the car. He was asking about her. Monica didn't flinch. She was used to people underestimating her, even ignoring the powerful skills she had spent years developing. But she knew this moment was coming. The arrogance in James's eyes, the assumptions he'd made about her simply because of her job, they were the same assumptions she'd fought against for most of her life. "I used to work in the car industry," she said calmly, her voice steady, "fixing luxury cars, designing them, making them better. But you wouldn't know that, would you?" James blinked, processing the words she had just dropped like stones into his carefully constructed world. You used to design cars? You're kidding." Monica took a deep breath. "Not kidding. But the world wasn't ready for me back then. People like me, black women, weren't welcome in a space like that. So I walked away. I kept my hands busy here, taking care of things that weren't broken beyond repair. James stood motionless, the weight of her words sinking in. He had never seen Monica as anything more than the help, a face in the background. The woman who cleaned his family's mansion, who made sure his clothes were pressed and his meals prepared. He never bothered to ask her anything more than what was required. But now, in the silence of the garage, everything had changed. His view of her had shattered. She wasn't just a maid. She was someone who had been pushed aside, silenced by the same system that had kept him comfortably ignorant of the world outside his bubble. I didn't know, he admitted, his voice quieter now, the arrogance fading. I never knew. Monica looked at him, her eyes soft but firm. Most people don't know, James. They never bother to look beyond what they're given. And it's not just about fixing cars. It's about recognizing the people around you. The ones who make things run when everyone else is too busy sitting in the driver's seat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. James wanted to say something, anything, to undo the years of disrespect. But how could he? The truth had been laid bare, and there was no going back. The days after Monica's revelation were the hardest for James. He found himself replaying her words over and over again, each time sinking deeper into the realization that he had taken so much for granted. His entire life had been built on wealth, status, and the privilege of never having to work for anything. He had grown up thinking that money could fix any problem, that the world revolved around him. But Monica had shown him a different truth. James couldn't stop thinking about the way she had effortlessly fixed the Bugatti. How she had worked on something that meant everything to him, something he couldn't even begin to understand, and done it with such grace and skill. But it wasn't just about the car. It was about everything else he had failed to see. Late one evening, James walked into the garage again. The car was fine now, but the emptiness he felt inside hadn't gone away. Monica was there, cleaning another vehicle, just as she always did. Her presence seemed so calm, so steady, that it made everything else feel chaotic by comparison. He hesitated before speaking. Monica, I need to apologize. For everything. The way I treated you, the things I said. Monica didn't look up immediately, but she stopped what she was doing. You don't have to apologize to me, James. But you might want to think about who you owe that apology to. James took a step forward. He wanted to explain himself, but he knew there were no excuses. I've been blind, Monica. I never realized the sacrifices you made. The things you gave up. I just assumed that people like you were just here to serve. Monica finally turned to face him, her gaze steady but not unkind. That's the problem, James. You assumed without ever bothering to really see. People like me aren't here just to serve. We're here to create, to contribute, to make things better. But most people don't look past the surface. James swallowed, the shame of his past behavior washing over him in waves. I can't change what I've done, but I want to learn. I want to understand. I don't want to be the person I've been. Monica studied him for a moment, as if deciding whether his words were genuine. Finally, she nodded. You can start by recognizing that people like me aren't invisible. You'll never truly understand everything, but you can start by listening. By being humble. For the first time, James felt something inside him shift. It wasn't a sudden change or a quick fix, but it was a start. Monica had opened his eyes, not just to her talents, but to the world of people he had never truly cared about before. The weeks that followed were a turning point for James. He had never felt so conflicted, yet so determined to make things right. He spent his days thinking about the things Monica had said, her quiet strength, and the passion she had once poured into cars. It wasn't just about the apology anymore, it was about making real changes, about showing Monica that he had learned, that he had grown. One afternoon, James found himself sitting across from Monica in the kitchen. She was sitting at the table, a cup of tea in front of her, her posture relaxed, but there was a sharpness in her eyes that told James she was always observing, always thinking. He had become used to the silence between them, the kind of silence where words were no longer necessary to communicate understanding. "Monica," he started, his voice a little unsure, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About not just seeing people but really understanding them. And I want to do something about it." Monica raised an eyebrow, the smallest hint of curiosity in her gaze. "I'm going to speak to my father about giving you a chance to design cars again. You deserve to be in that world. I know it's not much, but it's the least I can do." Monica shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "James, you don't need to do that for me. I've learned to live without the recognition. I've made peace with the path I've taken." "I know you've lived without it," James said quietly, "but you shouldn't have to. And I shouldn't have just stood by. I want to help you get back in the industry. I want you to be recognized for your work, for your talent." Monica paused, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of her cup. She could see the sincerity in James's eyes, but she knew that change wasn't something that happened overnight. It would take more than a promise. It would take real action. "I appreciate that, James," she said softly, "but it's not just about recognition. It's about respect. I've earned my place, not through charity, but through my work. And you have to remember, there's a world outside of this house. People need to understand that." James nodded, his resolve firming up. "I will. And I'll make sure that I do everything I can to change that for you. But it won't just be about getting you a job in the industry. It'll be about me standing up for people like you. For what's right." Monica sat back in her chair, studying him for a moment. She could see the man before her, the one who was no longer just the arrogant son of a billionaire, but someone who had begun to understand what it meant to be humble, to truly care about the people around him. "All right," she said with a small nod. "Then let's make sure you do it right." Weeks passed, and James kept his word. He had spoken with his father about Monica's past, about the injustice she had faced, and how her talents had been buried because of people like him. People who never bothered to look beyond the surface. The conversation wasn't easy. Richard, his father, had always prided himself on keeping things neat, controlled, and in their place. But when James explained Monica's story, the work she had done, and the sacrifices she had made, Richard finally saw it. It was the start of something that would take time, but a small shift began to happen in the Wallace family. Monica's designs, once forgotten, started to find their place in the world again. Slowly, she regained her confidence, and with James's support, her creations began to be celebrated for their ingenuity and skill. The industry she had once been forced out of now looked at her with admiration. James didn't stop there. He began advocating for other overlooked talents, quietly supporting causes and people who, like Monica, had been shut out by the system. It wasn't enough to fix everything overnight, but it was a start. One evening, months later, as Monica prepared dinner, James entered the kitchen. The soft hum of the house, the smell of freshly made food, felt warm and familiar, something they hadn't had before. James stood still for a moment, watching her, and something in his chest tightened. "I'm proud of you, Monica," he said, his voice steady but full of meaning. "You've shown me more than just what it means to be talented. You've shown me what it means to be humble, to truly care about people, and to fight for what's right, no matter the cost." Monica paused in her movements, glancing at him with a small, knowing smile. "I'm not looking for praise, James. I just wanted to be seen. For who I truly am." James stepped closer, the weight of their journey together sitting heavily on him. "You've done more than just that. You've helped me see things I never even realized. I owe you more than I could ever express." For a moment, there was a quiet pause. The tension of their past, the misunderstandings, the judgments, they were gone now, replaced by understanding and respect. As they sat down to eat, the world felt different. James knew the path ahead wouldn't be without its challenges, but he was no longer the person he once was. And with Monica by his side, he knew he was on the right track. This story was a journey of learning, understanding, and change. If it touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and join us for more stories that celebrate transformation and growth. Thank you for being part of this story.